Hey there, it's Leslie at Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and I've always wanted to make May the 4th be with you cookies. But this year I hemmed and hawed and couldn't come up with a design, and I waited until the last minute, and then I found this cute stitch clip art on the internet. And so I thought, well, I'll make a royal icing transfer and I'll do stitch. And so I printed out my royal icing transfer, and this transfer is probably about 2.5 inches tall. He's not very big. And then I went to the freezer and got out some icing and decided that the colors I had were fine and I didn't need to change anything, just kind of massage the bags and remix it a little bit. But I didn't need to, mess with the consistency. I could make it work. It was all going to be fine. Well, that was not true. My royal icing consistency is more like water. My black royal icing outline is pretty stiff, so that held it together. I'm super shocked that I didn't get a whole bunch of color bleed since my flood consistency is like water. But I continued on. I didn't want to stop. It was last minute and I was feeling pretty lazy, so I thought, well, we'll just see if this works. So I just kept going. My white consistency was a little bit thicker, so I went ahead and just used my scribe to give Stitch some teeth, but my red icing was still basically like water. So again, I'm really surprised I didn't get a whole bunch of color bleed. And I'm doing these teeth as a wet on wet, so luckily my white icing was a little bit stiffer, otherwise it probably would have just melted all over the place and blended into one big blob. And my green icing consistency was so water thin that it overflowed the black outline and went all into his eye. I really should have stopped. I should have remixed my icing, added some powdered sugar, thickened it up, because this is not the way you do royal icing transfers. Royal icing transfers need to have a medium consistency icing so that they're stronger, so that when you peel them off of the parchment paper, or in this case, I'm actually using a cello bag that you would put a cookie in after it's done, because it's just a little tiny royal icing transfer that I'm using, so I thought that would be a good idea. But that also wasn't a good idea because it was kind of bumpy, and then when I took Stitch off at the end, you'll see it's not flat, which is another problem in and of itself. But anyway, I should have stopped, but I just kept going, and it'll be fine, but it really isn't. Anyway, I finished Stitch and I put him aside to dry for probably a good solid day, maybe 2 days, and then you'll see what happens next. So I found some icing that I had in my freezer that was kind of a dark midnight blue color, and I thought that would look good for like a galaxy background. So I flooded my cookie. I didn't wait for my icing to completely thaw out, which was again another mistake. I know better, but I was in a hurry. This was the last minute. And I also had this ginormous cookie that I think I made 2 or 3 years ago and put in the freezer. I don't know why it was still in the freezer, but nobody's going to eat this cookie, so I thought I'll use that. So my stitch transfer is dry. He's super thin and brittle, so I used a little cake scraper from the cookie countess or stencil scraper to get him off. Look at how thin that is. That is why you don't use flood consistency icing to make your royal icing transfer. And the transfer is actually a little bumpy from not laying flat on the cookie cello bag I used, so I'm going to put it right in the wet icing. But my original envision for this cookie was with a starry galaxy background, so I'm going to flick some gel food color onto my background, and you can see it's starting to crack here. I don't know if that's because I added Stitch or if it was because my icing was still partially frozen, but not a good look. And the flood icing on the cookie is still not completely dry, but I went ahead and added his lightsaber, and then I'm painting on a glow around the outside edge. And then I decided to use a stiffer paintbrush and add in some darker spots and some black, and that actually dented the cookie and started cratering it all over the place. So then I tried to like smash that down and cover it up, and then I said, well, add a few more spots. Maybe it'll look like, I don't know, an asteroid hit it or something. But I've already messed it up, so I just kept going, and now I'm cratering the whole thing, and I'm not using any color on my paintbrush. It's just the way the light's reflecting off of the cookie as I do this. If I had more time, maybe I could have made a royal icing transfer of a planet or something to cover up where I first initially made that crater hole in my flood icing,
But now I'm trying to add some sparkle and really make it look like he's in outer space or something. Because all of my cratering got rid of most of my dots, I'm adding some more back in to make it have more of that splatter effect. So here's the final result. What do you think? Cookie fail or cookie save? Let me know in the comments. And may the fourth be with you, or the force be with you, whichever you prefer. I definitely don't think the force was with me on this one. Anyway, thanks for watching. I promise I usually know what I'm doing, so be sure to subscribe.